Welcome back to Wages and Employment at Wilfrid Laurier University. Today we are going to start our discussion of income maintenance programs with a focus on the programs we find in Canada. For reference, you should pair this video with readings in Chapter 3 of your textbook. In this chapter, we're going to take a closer look at what is broadly termed income maintenance programs. This refers to any government program that transfers income to people, generally as a response to concerns about poverty, but I would perhaps cynically suggest there are often other objectives here. The income support we see is generally aimed at raising the incomes of certain groups, such as seniors, but we also see programs that target low earnings families by subsidizing their wage earnings, such as the Canada Workers Benefit. Also, programs like employment insurance exist to insure workers against losses associated with unemployment spells or time taken away from work due to illness or even childbirth. So to get a sense of what we're talking about, I've put together some tabulations here to describe the extent to which income support programs are part of our lives, affecting most Canadian families. In fact, 83.7% of families, including single individuals without kids, received some sort of income support from the federal or provincial government in 2017. And on average, these families received nearly $13,000 per year. Of course, some people are more likely to receive checks from the government than others. Here we see that 32% of families receive Canada Pension Plan checks, which I'll note is not a typical transfer. But there is also a large number receiving old age security, which is available to nearly everyone over the age of 65, just for being over 65. And also, the Guaranteed Income Supplement is available to lower income seniors. Generally speaking, seniors are a large portion of those who benefit from income support. The next big group of beneficiaries are people with kids. Both the federal and provincial governments offer benefits to families with kids, with benefits that depend on family income. I think the remaining programs here, employment insurance, social assistance, and workers' compensation, are more easily thought of in terms of their effects on the labor market. But really, all of these benefits matter for the decisions we make in the labor market, and ultimately, this is what this chapter is about. Before we start looking at how specific programs matter, it's good to cover some basic jargon. We generally divide benefits into two categories, those that are universal and those that are targeted. Universal benefits are sent out to everyone, perhaps a particular demographic group, but the amount received does not depend on earnings or other income. Targeted benefits are only sent out to people below an income threshold, such as a poverty line. Sometimes people are offered partial benefits if they are above one threshold but below another. Each option has its merits. Universal benefits are simpler to administer, just send people the check. But they are also very expensive and require substantial tax revenues. In terms of our labor supply decision, we expect changes in non-labor income to affect people's decisions. Targeted benefits are less expensive, but there tends to be a problem with making sure everyone eligible actually receives their benefits. More importantly, at least for our purposes, the clawbacks involved also effectively reduce our take-home wage rate, which is our price of leisure, also affecting our labor supply decisions. I also want to point out that there are many issues in program design well beyond what we can manage with our simple model of labor supply. For example, we are always concerned that policy will distort labor market decisions, resulting in less than efficient outcomes, here reducing labor supply below an optimal level. But we also know our labor markets are not perfectly competitive and sometimes fail to achieve efficient outcomes. We also recognize that what we do for a living is often a really big part of our identity when we think about how we fit in with the people around us. And it's certainly an important part of most North American culture. If people find themselves outside the labor market for long periods of time, there's a sense of social exclusion that can develop and make a person worse off. And we want to keep this in mind when designing programs. But there's also a more challenging issue in trying to determine if someone's state of low income is permanent or transitory. It's transitory if it's a temporary problem. If it looks like someone is just having a bad couple of months, the appropriate policy response would be very different than something more permanent. For example, if a person is disabled or finds it challenging to find their place in the labor market. But there's also one big issue in policy design that most economists are not well qualified to think about or prefer to ignore. And that's the notion that good economics doesn't always align with good politics. It's a great day when we can find some overlap between the two, because that's when we get to see good policy come forward. In the next few videos, we're going to look at specific types of income maintenance programs and work through how the programs might affect people's work decisions. But we're mostly restricting ourselves to what is called the static partial equilibrium effects. Static means we're just looking at a single point in time. So if I change your incentives to work right now, what would you do in response? This is different from my dynamic perspective, where we would also think about how the policy changes today might affect longer run decisions over time. Partial equilibrium is where we only think about an immediate impact on the supply side of the labor market. This is different from general equilibrium effects, where we would think about how the demand side of the market might respond to changes on the supply side and ultimately change wage rates. And the goods market may react as well by changing the prices of the things that we buy. While these dynamic general equilibrium effects are important, we're going to restrict ourselves for now to stay focused. In our next videos, we're going to pick apart a wide range of income maintenance programs and think about how they affect labor supply decisions using our basic model of labor supply. We'll take on demo grants first. See you then.